Who doesn't love Godspell? Sorry, I had to ask that. So let me set the stage for you. It's the 1970s in a dining room in the suburbs of Hartford, Connecticut. The actors are my mom and dad, who are climbing the proverbial ladder of success by having my dad's boss and his wife over for dinner. My brother and I are too young to remember how we really fit into this drama, but considering my brother's tendency to have everything managed and under control, let's just make him the stage crew, the lights and the cameras, right? All that goes on behind the scenes aligned with the production. And considering my passion to lead teams, let's just make me the director of the band. Let's forget my music illiteracy. Well, the storyline is that my dad made dessert, a pumpkin pie with a perfect ruffled crust. Everyone was impressed, especially his family. So they cut it. They put a dollop of whipped cream on it, and they passed it out. And of course, having perfect etiquette, they waited for my mom to give the signal that it was okay to start eating. And so my mom took the first bite. And before everyone else took their first bite, she had spit it out into her napkin. It turns out that there's more than one white crystal on the counter in a container. And pumpkin pies, proportionally to other pies, require a lot more sugar. And when you put salt in it, it becomes too salty. Thank God for my dad's career. His boss, back then, and our family still laugh about it to this day. I'm not disagreeing with Jesus or Godspell or the kiddos, but the plain fact is that salt doesn't lose its flavor. You can have too much salt, or you can have too little, or it can be contaminated with impurities, but it does not lose its flavor. Jesus, right, being omnipotent, knowing everything. Certainly Jesus knows this. So we have to go deeper. If we want to get to the intended meaning, we have to combine salt and light to discern what God is telling us. Lake Superior is known as one of the most dangerous bodies of water in the world, particularly in November, when vicious storms fly across the lake. 350 ships, including the infamous SS Edmund Fitzgerald, whose crew of 29 have never been found. The watery waves, in the pitch black of night, blindside sailors like sledgehammers. They can neither see nor discern a direction to go. All they can do is pray to survive. In 1905, a particularly fierce northwestern storm swept across Lake Superior. The storm of the century wiped out 29 ships. Destruction and death is all that remained in its wake. At that point, Split Rock Lighthouse was commissioned on a cliff on Beaver Bay, Minnesota. The lighthouse was completed in 1910, sporting a huge lens including 242 lenses to focus its light Its blindingly bright white beam can see for 22 miles. My friend Steve Fowler, a Navyman, told me that the horizon, correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, is 11 miles away? 8 miles away. This can be seen for 22 miles. Imagine what it did when it rotated to being on land, which is why they put it on top of a hill, so that it wouldn't keep everyone in the town up at night, so that they were obsessively focused on their mission of not allowing the light to disturb the natives, so they could stay above the fray of keeping the land dwellers, as they call them, up at night. The light became a beacon of hope to all who dared to cross the waves of the Great Lakes. The Split Rock Lighthouse has saved thousands and thousands of lives. Why? Because they are obsessively focused on their mission, and they obsessively focused that light and put it above the fray of the locals being kept up at night. You see, light too is something that we can have too much of. We can be blinded by it. To be the light of the world, we must be focused on our mission. We must be above the fray of the petty arguments that cut and divide us from each other. That was true 2,000 years ago, as it was true 112 years ago, as it is today. The number of denominations within Christianity, because we don't stay above the fray and focused on our mission, it's pretty embarrassing, to be truthful with you. On another dangerous coast where shipwrecks often occur, there once was a life-saving station. The building was primitive, and it had just one boat. But the members of the life-saving station were committed to watching the sea, to unselfishly going out night or day whenever a wreck would happen, whenever people were lost. Because they saved lives at this station, it became famous. Consequently, many people wanted to be associated with the life-saving station. They gave their time, their talent, and their money to support their life-saving work. New boats were bought, and new crews were trained, and membership grew at the life-saving station. Some of the members became concerned that the building was too primitive and that their boats were outdated. So they made plans to replace the emergency cots with beds and to put better furniture in a newly constructed building. The now 2 life-saving stations became popular gathering places for their members. They met regularly, and when they did, they greeted each other. They hugged. They built community together. They lived, they laughed, they cried together. They broke bread together. As the years passed, the separate stations evolved to placings where different people met regularly for regular fellowship, where different teams and committees had different meetings, especially for trainings on their mission to stay afloat. As they kept an eye on their competition, fewer and fewer actually went out to save drowning people. History did what history does. It continued to repeat itself. And if you visit that seacoast today, you'll find a number of adequate meeting places with ample parking and plush accommodations. Shipwrecks still happen in those waters, it's said, and most of the people drowned. Although originally written in 1953, this rings true, doesn't it? I'm not sure if they were too salty or blinded, or probably a mix of both. We live in a day and age when it seems like everything and everyone is hijacked by hyper-partisanship. We have become tribal, where all of us, yes, even pastors, including yours truly, can be too salty and or blinded. Here's the key. I believe God showed me this week. We must take into consideration that earlier in chapter 5, Jesus pushed the envelope with the Beatitudes. And after this section on salt and light, there's this encrypted, uncomfortable, bar-raising section on the law and the prophets. Right here, intentionally, within the very same chapter. After today's reading, Jesus goes on to describe how we fulfill the law and the prophets. Here, in this very chapter 5, Jesus sets the stage by redefining murder as reconciling your anger. He redefines adultery and divorce as not allowing your heart to become corrupt. He redefines an eye for an eye as the integrity of forgiveness. He redefines your love of neighbor and hating your enemies, which used to be taught, as allowing them to bring out the best in us. That is what being salt and light is for us today. It's easy to love others. Anyone can do that. But to love your enemies and allow them to bring out the best in us, that's salt and light. That's what our children see as so hypocritical about the church. That's what's going to bring them and their children back into the fold. Love that is so overflowing that it loves its enemies and brings them into making the best out of us. Jesus has set the stage, my friends. And our mission is to save those who God has placed in our lives by loving God and loving others, especially our enemies, as we love ourselves. Jesus has set the stage. He's got all the actors in place. He brought the band together. He's aligned them with the stage crew, with lights and cameras. And he has said, action. The question for us is, are we going to stay above the fray of our differences and be focused on our mission? Are we going to be the salt and the light? Amen? Amen. Amen.